Good afternoon, traders. Monday the 13th, bank holiday here in the UK. Here is my weekly trading watch list. There's a lot going on this week. A couple of traps I feel, but I'll go over my main pairs and then I will just list a few maybes as well. I have quite a lot on my maybe list, but let's just start. So if we start on Aussie CAD. Aussie CAD was something that was actually taken for a 1% loss last week, trading from this key level just here. On the weekly, we do have a downward sloping trend line, so I do think that price will go up to value. The interesting thing on this position is I am looking for a further move to the downside, because I do expect in this economic climate that the CAD will gain strength over the Aussie dollar. But what's quite interesting here is obviously we're only on the 13th, but if we get a monthly close like this, then that is a low test into a huge bullish move, which could indicate a move much higher, up to this level here of the 94 handle. So we'll see what happens on this one. I'm a little bit hesitant, so I'll need to see something supreme to enter. So at the moment, I'm just sort of keeping my eye out really on the daily and the weekly before looking for intraday entries. So that's Aussie CAD. Aussie Yen is starting to get really interesting. So you can see we have basically had the weekly move. So fib level here, start to the bottom to the pullback. We're at 618, which happens to be a key level. So we've got 618, we've got the key level, we've got the daily 50 EMA as well. And you can see we've got some nice consolidation here as well. For FXCM, this hasn't filled, this gap hasn't filled, but then I did go onto the IG index and it had filled, so take that with a pinch of salt. But you can see we're consolidating here, so need to see something more. I need to see a lower high, a break and retest of that 1 hour 50 EMA. At the moment it didn't happen, it's still price is rejecting from it, but very interesting level here. So would look like to play this right down to the lows, so recent lows here, which will give a nice risk to reward of around 14% if we held this to the absolute lows, and that would still be with a nice 60 pip stop. We'll just wait and just see what happens, but this is one of my favorite positions actually. Aussie dollar is similar, so the fib level on Aussie dollar does line up. There's a little bit more room, so let me explain my fib on Aussie dollar. So on the weekly it makes sense. So if we do weekly high here to the weekly low, and then you've got 618 here, which is a nice level of resistance as well. You can see there was some consolidation here. We had a bounce from here, so I'm expecting price to come up and retest this, which is 618. The only downside of that is we have broken that daily 50 EMA, which of course is dynamic support and resistance. So we've broken that to the upside, which I'm not liking. However, price is it's decelerating, it's slowing down. So I don't know, if we go on to the 1 hour and we see sort of a clean 1 hour break and retest with a nice high test, then this could be an entry lower. At the moment it's fairly clean. It's not as clean as Aussie Yen, but it is interesting. The only other thing I would say is if we do draw, because we'd normally just draw our fib from the recent high, which is here, it doesn't line up. You can see 618 is completely broken, and this is 0.75 fib, which is where I'd like to have my stop really. But you can see this level here, that's a decent level of support and resistance. So here, support, 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 support. It was broken and then retested as resistance. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if we were to break here. We'd most likely come up to this level as well. I've got my Fibonacci drawn on the weekly, and we'll just see what happens around the 618 level. Swiss yen is interesting. I do have this on watch, and price is moving. The only reason why I haven't entered this is because they're two key currencies. They're two what we'd call safe haven currencies. So people are putting their money in Swiss and they're putting it in Japanese yen. So there's no real clear direction of what currency would get stronger out of this crisis. So on the 1 hour, you can see it's fairly clean, and if we were to get a break, a further breakdown here, I would need something like price to come down to quite a lot lower, and then to retest this horizontal level here with the 1 hour 50 EMA, and then I would have my stop way above the highs, and then I would only look to target sort of the lows around this level here. But we'll see what happens on this. This is more of a I don't think I'll enter this, but it's more to one just to watch and just see how it plays out. Euro Kiwi is very interesting, and this is correlated with the moves that are going on in the SNP500 at the moment. So we can see we've got the big move, we've got the pullback, and then we're looking for further upside and a continuation, to be honest. But 2 is a really decent level. Show you on the daily. You can see we've got the low, we've got the high, we've got the pullback here, which is 618 Fibonacci, which price is floating around this at the moment. We've got the daily 50 EMA, and you can see we've got support. So we've got a nice level here and a nice level here. So you can see price has bounced from this. It's a historic line as well, it goes back further, but you can see you've got those 2 touches, and then we're currently retouching this as well. On the intradays, nothing is making sense at the moment, but if we can either see a clean break and retest of that 1 hour 50 EMA, or a break of this trend line, this downward sloping trend line, to retest the trend line and the 1 hour 50 EMA, stop below the lows, targeting the highs, this would be a great safe entry. Pound Aussie I've got on watch. Probably won't enter this, it's more of a maybe pair, but if we look on a daily time frame, you can see we've got a nice upward sloping trend line here, which is quite respected. The only thing that I don't like about this is that we've broken the daily 50 EMA, that's why it's on maybe. But you can see has been respected, we are at the lows, and it's most likely going to bounce here. Not really too interested in it, but it is something to just pay attention to. Pound dollar. This is pretty much a textbook setup. So Fibonacci high to the low. 618, daily 50 EMA. Upward sloping trend line as well. We're very close to the 4 hour 50 here. So because of that, I would actually like to see a break of that 4 hour 50 EMA and then a retest of it. And then a stop behind the recent high. It means we'll be able to have a tighter stop than we would be just entering at a risk here. And our position would be protected by dynamic resistance as well. So very, very nice setup. And when we look at this on the weekly, we can see we have a continuation lower. We can see that this would be our first target here, which would be the 1.2 handle, which is historic. And then we could see this broken lower on our Fibonacci levels. So we've got 1.2, and then we should have 1.618 further down. So be an interesting one, but no entries yet. Kiwi dollar, similar setup. The only thing that I don't like about this is if we go on to the monthly, we can basically see that we have broken this upward sloping channel and we haven't really retested it. So when we go on to the weekly, that is the only retest that we have had. So it's just a break and then a quick retest. So I'm not loving it because of that, but we are at 618, and then on the daily you can see we're starting to consolidate. That's irrelevant. Upward sloping trend line again. Look at the 4 hours, very close. So same again, we'd want to see a break of that trend line, break of the 4 hour 50 EMA, retest it and stop above the highs. So stop would be behind 618, behind the EMAs, behind the resistance level and behind the trend line. So nice setup. Oil for me is actually quite confusing. Don't know why I've still got there, just to torment that it didn't pull back and miss my position. But if we look on weekly, you can see we had this huge bullish move followed by a bearish move. So not really much that's going on. You know, normally when you have a big bullish move like this, you normally see some, you know, some further acceleration, but that didn't happen. So you can see here we had the move up on the 4 hour, and then it looked like we were retesting this 4 hour 50 EMA to zoom up, but that never happened, and we're just sort of moving downwards. So I've drawn this 4 hour channel in here. What we might see is sort of a retest of the lows here around sort of the 19.5 handle and then the move up. Very interested to see how this monthly candle closes on oil, because obviously at the moment it's looking like a hammer, but very interesting to see what's going on here. There's a lot of politics that's going into oil at the moment as well, and the trouble is with some, you know, a commodity like oil is this will move on speculation rather than the facts, and normally we hear the speculation a lot later than anyone else, so it's almost a bit of a gamble when you do trade oil. So I try to avoid it unless it's a really clean setup, and to be honest, that would have been the only clean setup for me at the moment, and that would have gone into a loss anyway, unless you would have bulletproofed your position. SNP500, I'm just waiting just to enter this. I am pretty certain we'll have a continuation to the downside. If we look at it here, we've got the high, we've got the low, and we're at 0.5 Fibonacci. It depends how you draw it. I mean, that's when you draw it on your weeklies, and then if you draw it from this swing here, we're literally at 618. So depends how you draw your Fibonacci levels, and it's important to draw, you know, look at both, because you get to see how other people are trading. I like to draw it from the weeklies really. We've got the daily 50 EMA that we're currently rejecting. We've got a nice level of support here, which is currently being retested as resistance. So you can see I've got quite a few lines on here, just really monitoring this quite heavily, and this goes hand in hand with the volatility index as well, which I'll show you after this. So just simply waiting for an entry. Nothing is occurring at the moment. But for me, for this, I would probably just enter on a break and retest of this 1 hour 50 EMA. That's all I really need to see. If we get a nice clean breakdown and then a retest of, say, this trend line 1 hour 50 EMA, that'll be enough for me to enter this and hold this to the downside. Ideally, I'd like to hold it to recent lows, but my long-term target is 1900. Correlates with the volatility index as well. So the VIX. A lot of funds actually trade the volatility index over the S&P. I like just to trade the S&P index on FXCM. I think it's quite reliable. So let's go on the daily. You can see Fibonacci at the lows, Fibonacci at the highs. So 618 is here. The daily 50 EMA is here. So we're around a decent level of value right now. This correlates with the S&P. So if we see a move upwards here, then we should see a move downwards on the S&P. So watching this, you can see it's quite corrective. You can see that we've got some sort of trend line coming in here. So if we see a break of this trend line, break of that 4 hour 50 EMA, we can guarantee that S&P has already started to sell off to the downside. And that's pretty much it. I've got silver on maybe list as well. I've got a couple of Kiwi pairs, Kiwi Swiss, Kiwi Yen, and I have got Aussie Swiss as well on maybe. Aussie Swiss is actually quite interesting. So the only reason why I've got it on maybe is because there is no level of support resistance. There's no key levels here, but we are sitting around 618 Fibonacci and that daily 50 EMA again. So a lot of the pairs are sort of in a similar sort of area, but you just need to pick the best one, the one with the most confluence factors. See Aussie Swiss, you know, you could see a pullback all the way up to here, which would be considered value with that weekly 50 EMA and this level of support here to be retested as resistance. But you can see there's a lot going on. It's very easy to get burnt, but there is a lot of positions that are sort of, you know, that could possibly pay out even starting from later on today, possibly even tomorrow. So a lot going on, and hopefully it's a good week for us.